إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء، واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم، ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد، فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله، وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم، وشر الأمور محدثاتها، وكل محدثة بدعة، وكل بدعة ضلالة، وكل ضلالة في النار. فيا أيها الناس اتقوا الله تعالى واعبدوه ولا تشركوا به شيئا. O servants of Allah, fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and worship Him alone, and do not associate any partners with Him. For indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us and placed us on this earth for that reason, to worship Him alone. As Allah said in the Quran, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ, that I did not create the jinn or the humans except for them to worship me. Allah informed us of our objective in this earth. Allah informed us of our purpose of existence, and that is to worship Him alone. And by the favor and mercy and blessings of Allah, He did not leave us without guidance. For indeed He sent the prophets and the messengers with revelation to guide the people on how to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so Allah told us in the Quran, وَلَقَدْ بَعَثْنَا فِي كُلِّ أُمَّةٍ رَسُولًا أَنِ اعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَاجْتَنِبُوا الطَّاغُوتَ, that indeed we sent to every nation a messenger, preaching to them, worship Allah alone and abstain, refrain, stay away from the false deities. Hence Allah mentioned in the Quran, وَاعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَلَا تُشْرِكُوا بِهِ شَيْئًا, worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone and do not associate any partners with Him. We therefore realize that this world and this existence, it is for a purpose. There is an objective and an aim to this existence, and that is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is testing His servants, who from among them will be righteous and obedient, and who from among them will be disobedient. Allah informed us in the Quran, الَّذِي خَلَقَ الْمَوْتَ وَالْحَيَاةَ لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. Allah is the one who created death and life in order to test you, which of you will be the best in action. These texts of the Quran, these ayat, they highlight that every servant must ponder and reflect over his life, because indeed the time that we have been given is limited. It is a limited number of years or days or weeks that a person has, and then death will come. كُلُّ نَفْسٍ ذَائِقَةُ الْمَوْتِ. Every soul shall taste death, and then the accountability will occur to check and to account every person for their deeds. And let it be known that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned in the hadith of Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu in Sahih Muslim, بدأ الإسلام غريبا وسيعود غريبا كما بدأ فطوبى للغرباء الذين يصلحون ما أفسد الناس. The Prophet ﷺ said, Islam began as something strange, and it will return to becoming something strange once again, just as it began. So glad tidings, paradise and goodness for those who rectify when the people are causing corruption. Glad tidings and paradise for those who bring about rectification when others are causing corruption. In this hadith, we see that indeed Islam, this final religion, the chosen religion for Allah, as Allah said, Inna ad-deena inda Allahi al-Islam. Indeed, the religion with Allah is al-Islam. And Allah mentioned, وَمَنْ يَبْتَغِي غَيْرَ الْإِسْلَامِ دِينًا فَلَنْ يُقْبَلَ مِنْهُ وَهُوَ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. That whomsoever seeks a religion other than Islam, it will not be accepted from him, and he will be from the losers in the afterlife. This religion of Islam, it began as something strange. In the early days, when the revelation began, there were barely a handful of Muslims in amongst all of the mushrikun, all of the disbelievers in Mecca. And it was only the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, along with a handful of believers. It is mentioned in a hadith or in a narration that on one occasion, a man went to visit Abbas ibn Abdul Muttalib, the uncle of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and they were in the vicinity of the Kaaba, and they saw a young man walk out to the Kaaba, and they saw that young man when he approached the Kaaba, he looked up into the sky and then faced the Kaaba and began praying. Shortly afterwards, very soon afterwards, a young boy came and stood next to that man and began praying with him. And very shortly after that, a woman came and stood behind them and began praying with them. And so the narrator says, when the young man bowed into the ruku', the boy bowed and the woman bowed. And when the young man stood up from the ruku', the boy stood up from the ruku' and the woman stood up from the ruku'. And when the young man went down into prostration, the boy and the woman went down into prostration. The narrator says that he said to Abbas, who was with him, "What an amazing affair!" Abbas said to him, "An amazing affair. Do you know who these are?" The narrator said to Abbas, "I do not know." Abbas, the uncle of the Prophet ﷺ, he said to him, "That young man who you saw go out and began praying, that is Muhammad, the son of Abdullah ibn Abdul Muttalib. And the boy that you saw go and stand next to him is Ali ibn Abi Talib. And the woman that has stood behind them is Khadija bint Khuwaylid. And then Abbas, he said to this narrator in that narration, I have been informed by him, by Muhammad, that your Lord has informed him or commanded him to establish this prayer, to be upon this religion. And then he said, I do not know on the face of the earth anyone else besides these three upon this religion. I do not know. Abbas himself was not Muslim yet. He said to the other one, I do not know anyone on the face of the earth upon this religion other than these three. That is where Islam began. Three people stood at the Kaaba praying. In that narration it is mentioned Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Ali ibn Abi Talib, Khadija bint Khuwaylid. And then after that, of course, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, and everybody became Muslim. But this is how it began, small. It began strange in terms of the numbers, let alone the actual methodology of Tawheed. Only the messenger and one or two people with him. Islam began as something strange. When the Prophet ﷺ said to the mushrikun, قُولُوا لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهُ تُفْلِحُوا. He said to them, say, La ilaha illallah, that there is no deity worthy of worship in truth except Allah. They said, أَجَعَلَ الْآلِهَةَ إِلَهًا وَاحِدًا إِنَّ هَذَا لَشَيْءٌ عُجَابٌ. They said, is he wanting to make all of our gods into just one? He wants us to worship only one and abandon all of these others. Indeed, that is something strange. That is something strange. Abandon all of them and worship only one. Indeed, Islam began as something strange, and it will return to being something strange. So glad tidings and paradise for the strangers. And who are those strangers? Those who remain firm and upright upon their religion, even when they see the corruption occurring and they see the society disintegrating, they see the corruption on the streets, in their cities, in the ideologies of the dunya, yet they remain firm upon their religion. They remain firm upon the Quran, the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they remain firm upon the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, as the Messenger told us to do so. تَرَكْتُ فِيكُمْ شَيْئَيْنِ مَا إِن تَمَسَّكْتُمْ بِهِمَا لَن تَضِلُّوا بَعْدِي كِتَابَ اللَّهِ وَسُنَّتِي. The Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, I have left two things behind. As long as you cling on to them, you will not go astray. The book of Allah and my sunnah. That is where salvation lies. As Allah told us, وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. By time, indeed mankind is in loss, except those who remain firm upon Iman and upon their righteous actions, and they call to the truth, enjoin the good and forbid the evil, and they call to patience upon the religion in the face of all of the deceptions of the shaitan in society, patience upon what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to us, patience upon clinging to Islam, the complete and final revelation. As Allah said, الْيَوْمَ أَكْمَلْتُ لَكُمْ دِينَكُمْ وَأَتْمَمْتُ عَلَيْكُمْ نِعْمَتِي وَرَضِيتُ لَكُمُ الْإِسْلَامَ دِينًا, that I have completed for you your religion and perfected it for you, and I am pleased with you to be upon Islam as your religion. The Muslim must remember that Allah has told us, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ, that I have not created man or jinn except for them to worship me. And then Allah gave us all of the prophets and messengers and revelations so that we be guided to the upright worship of Allah. And we must remain firm upon that religion in the face of the attack from all of the ideologies of the disbelievers, all of the practices that the shaitan calls to. We must remember the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. كن في الدنيا كأنك غريب أو عابر سبيل. Be in this world as though you are a stranger or a passerby. And that is because a stranger to a place is not in his home, and a traveler passing through is not in his home. And that is how the Messenger told us to be in this world. Be in this world knowing that it is not your home. This world is only temporary. You will pass through it until you get to your actual home, which is paradise, insha'Allah ta'ala. The actual home, the original home, that is where the believer aims for. That is where the believer has his sights upon. And the one who does that will, insha'Allah ta'ala, be able to keep himself safe from all of the distractions of the world, from all of the deception of the shaitan in this world, from all of the luxuries and the bliss that the shaitan provides, from all of the deviated methodologies, the corrupt ideologies that are forced upon the people, especially in these societies. The one who remembers his objective in this world and remembers his actual home he is targeting, then insha'Allah ta'ala such a believer will be able to remain firm upon his religion in this world up until death bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen, نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. فيا عباد الله, it is of vital importance that we recognize our purpose of existence and that you recognize how many blessings Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has bestowed upon you. وَإِن تَعُدُّوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ لَا تُحْصُوهَا. If you try to count the number of blessings of Allah, you will not be able to do so. Such are the huge amounts of those blessings. And so when you are faced with the corruption and the deception and the whisperings of the shaitan, and the corruption in the ideologies and methodologies of this world, remember your Lord and who it is you worship, and remember the temporary and finite amount of time that you have been given in this world. The days and the nights, they pass by in the blink of an eye. How many years have gone by in our lives? And we remember we were 5 years old or 10 years old. We remember our lives from 20 years ago, 40 years ago. And where are we now and what have we done with our lives? We must make sure that we are making utilization of our lives upon the Quran and the Sunnah, learning it and understanding it so that we can implement it accurately. When a person dies, you will have nothing else to show other than what you did in this world with your life. In the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, يَتْبَعُ الْمَيِّتَ ثَلَاثًا أَهْلُهُ وَمَالُهُ وَعَمَلُهُ فَيَرْجِعُ اثْنَانِ وَيَبْقَى وَاحِدٌ يَرْجِعُ أَهْلُهُ وَمَالُهُ وَيَبْقَى عَمَلُهُ. The Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam informed us, 3 things will follow the deceased individual to his grave: his family, his wealth, and his deeds, his actions. Then the messenger said, 2 of them, they will return. They will not go with you in your grave. His family will return. And as it mentions in one of the narrations, the deceased individual hears the footsteps of his family departing. And your wealth will return. It will not go with you. It will be taken by the inheritors. Then the messenger said, 1 thing will remain with you. Your actions and your deeds, they are the only thing that will remain with you in your grave. And that is what you will be accountable upon Yawm al-Qiyamah. As the messenger said in the Hadith Qudsi, إِنَّمَا هِيَ أَعْمَالُكُمْ أُحْصِيهَا لَكُمْ. That Allah said, it is your actions that I hold accountable upon you. فَمَنْ وَجَدَ خَيْرًا فَلْيَحْمَدِ اللَّهِ. So whomsoever finds goodness, then let him thank Allah. وَمَنْ وَجَدَ غَيْرَ ذَلِكَ فَلَا يَلُومَنَّ إِلَّا نَفْسَهُ. But whomsoever finds on that day in his records other than goodness, he finds evil in them, then the messenger mentioned that Allah said, do not blame anyone else other than yourself. There is a great responsibility upon us as parents for our children, a great responsibility upon us ourselves, for our families, our wives, to ensure that we remain firm upon the religion of Allah, and to know that Islam will be strange, just as it began as strange. So do not think that to be unusual, that you are a stranger in society, that you grow the beard for the men in implementation of the Sunnah, you wear your garments above your ankles and you call to the worship of Allah alone. Many affairs that the society will think strange of you, but you do not find that unusual, knowing that Islam will be strange amongst the people. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us all firm upon Islam up until death, and that we remain strong upon knowledge and understanding and worship of Allah up until death, and that Allah protect us from the ideologies and methodologies and the corruption that exists, that the shaitan has whispered to the people, that Allah protect us from all of that up until death comes to us in the best of states. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولجميع المسلمين.